Today on Overwatch This, new map Oasis has now released. We take a look at its features and future, and we also talk about upcoming changes on the PTR. Hello everybody and welcome back to Overwatch This, episode 14. It's Joel here with Ben.
Episode 2017.
2017, we are here and we've got a new map to talk about. So, kicking off 2017 is, as we say, Oasis. It's been on the PTR before, but it's now live in the world, and people are playing games of Overwatch on it.
Yeah, I think it pretty much went live actually before Blizzard went, we're all back in the office. I think they've kind of been...
They just scheduled it.
Yeah, they were just like, right, we'll just put this out. I'm sure it'll be fine. And it was, pretty much.
And there it is. Yeah, and it's out, and it's it looks quite nice. It's got a kind of Middle Eastern meets Asian architecture meets... It reminded me of...
Future.
It reminded me of the Mass Effect Citadel a bit.
Yes,
it's all very
it does. Yeah,
clean and
it's sleek,
glistening.
And slightly rounded at the top, but in all places.
Yeah, exactly. I think it looks rather nice.
Yeah, I really like the look of it. The new big thing is like the jump pad.
Yes.
There's a very, very good GIF that should hopefully be playing on screen right now that was captured by somebody on Reddit. I assume it's heading
bouncy
straight to the top of our all with that one. That's exactly the sort of thing that you want to see happening with like new features on maps. You want to see unique ways of using them. Maybe not always with Bastion.
Yeah, it's pretty funny though. I quite like it. It's like
good.
he's bouncing in a massive chimney, just murdering everyone. So we spoke about it a bit before, and there were some bugs with it because it's got not only the jump pads, it's got the cars that run around sort of the perimeter. Some of these have been fixed, and some of them haven't.
Yeah, so it looks like maybe some of them were features.
I'm not really buying this at all.
So there are a few bugs. I remember we mentioned there was like one with some slopes weren't exactly right in high-level places that meant that if you were playing Pharah on one side of the map, you actually had an advantage over the other side. All of that has, I at least assume, been fixed because people aren't massively complaining about it. But then, so the cars, there were two kind of major things that people noticed that haven't been fixed. This was along with, there was like a thing with Widowmaker where if you used her grapple hook on a car, you would just go flying forever. That was fixed. And there was a thing with Sombra where you could get out of bounds by putting her teleport beacon onto a car because the car would drive off into the Great Abyss, and you could then teleport into the Great Abyss, as we all wish to. But then, so there's also Zarya and Mei had a couple of things that they could do. Zarya got charge from the cars hitting her, not if they hit her straight on, but if they just kind of like
that's not
glance against her.
I'm not having that.
You don't believe in that one, no? So yeah, there's that, and that means that she can get 40 charge by just using her shield. If she does it on an ally, she can then get another 40 charge, so she can pretty much start the game for a small delay with 80 charge. If this is removed by the time you hear this / by tomorrow, then I guess it wasn't a feature. But it's kind of interesting as an idea because it gives you a new option for a trade-off. Now, part of the problem is that I don't think Zarya really needs buffed right now. She's kind of part of that 4-tank, really good series of characters, but it is a slightly interesting idea. The Mei one is a bit more interesting because she has the ability to become invulnerable within her ice block. She can jump onto a car, hit it in midair, land on the car, and then the car will take it to the center of the map very quickly.
Because it's more about the map meeting the character's ability in a way that means it's sort of an exploit, but not one. It's not a bug.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
I think it's an exploitable feature rather than a bug. The Zarya one I don't think makes sense because of, as you say, the car. It's not like any time she's hit by the car, it's like at a certain
it's at a certain angle. I think part of it is because
that's
of the
why
way.
I think that's a bug.
I think part of the reason it is with the Zarya one is probably the way the kill feeds work. The kill fields even I expect the whole car is marked as if you are inside this, you die, unless you have some sort of invulnerability field. So she needs to stand somewhere where she only gets hit by that once, which is right at the side of it. What they could do is change that so that she always gets the charge and she never dies, no matter how much of the car she's hit by. But I expect they're more likely to just remove it, right?
The Mei one's quite cool. I quite like that.
Yeah, the Mei one's really interesting. And is exactly, again, the sort of thing I think you want to see. It's an interesting intersection of here's something cool new they put in, here's an ability they put in a long time ago that obviously wasn't planned for this, and oh look, they interact in an interesting way.
Yeah.
So I would recommend trying that out. It's probably fairly powerful as well because Mei's a fairly slow character. Being able to move around the map quicker is something that'll make her particularly good on that map.
And we've got a new mode, an Oasis only arcade mode, right?
Yeah, I think it's just the normal game
On Oasis.
but you can only you only get on Oasis. You can access it through the arcade. There was a few complaints last night because I think it maybe didn't go live at the same time Oasis did, and people obviously want to play the new map for a few rounds at least. And it happened with Eichenwald, but yeah. So that is now live. It's over in the arcade. You can just access it like you would any other arcade game mode.
Cool. And as far as other maps go, like the future of maps, what do we think? Like how far off we are from, well, I don't know, whatever we're calling the next one?
Well, we actually don't know much about any upcoming new maps. We kind of knew that there was one really far along, which was Oasis.
Yeah.
And we also, I think, knew that it was going to have this jump pad in it before it was named. And we also knew that if they were going to introduce new game modes, which they were talking about, like the 3v3 and the 1v1, we knew they were going to need to come with their own kind of map thing. So we kind of knew about the two that we've had so far. Now we're a bit more in the dark, at least as far as I know. And yeah, so what might happen, I don't know. I expect it won't happen like with the next PTR that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So it'll probably be like a month or so or another couple of months before we see another map. But we are a bit more in the dark now, and that's, I guess, fairly exciting.
Okay, on the topic of new stuff, this one's slightly more possible new stuff, speculative. We should have a new patch, maybe, on the PTR this week, possibly.
It might happen.
That's great, isn't it?
Maybe, yeah. This is the bang up to the minute news you're here for.
But we do not know what it will come with when it comes, or
Yes.
at least part of what it will come with.
Yeah, exactly. So on the forums, Jeff Goodman, who's the class guy, he deals with the balance of guns and abilities and all the rest of it. He was talking about Roadhog, who has had a number of problems for a long time. Basically, that his hook is essentially broken. It is very, very favourable to whoever is using it, and it can be very, very frustrating for the people that are getting hit by it, as I'm sure you can imagine. And it's been broken for a while. They've said that they have fixes that they were working on, but they kind of said that I think it was like a month and a half ago, might have even been as early as BlizzCon. And then they never materialised, and somebody was like, hey, where is this? And Jeff Goodman went on the forums and he said, this is ready to go on the next PTR. That will hopefully be this week. So that was kind of like, okay, right, so there's another PTR coming this week. Presumably this will be for the patch that comes out at the end of this month. As we've said in the past, it looks like at the moment we're basically getting one major-ish patch per month.
Yeah.
Whether that introduces like a new hero or a new map, or just, is a bunch of balance changes. That kind of depends. So yeah, basically they're working on Roadhog's hook is what we found out.
Okay, and basically they're going to largely just nerf it.
They're going to pretty much rip it to pieces, it seems. It's going to be less random, which is good. Like where it deposits the player will always be in front of wherever Roadhog was looking when he hooked them. So you can't end up to the side, you can't miss with your follow-up shot if you're the Roadhog, so that's good.
Yeah.
But they also said that there's not going to be any more corner pulls, which is where it can hook onto someone that Roadhog could see when he fired the hook, but couldn't see once the hook actually landed. And also, it just won't go through walls anymore.
That's probably a good thing.
That is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Basically, like there's going to be loads more line of sight checks on it. So when it lands, there'll be a line of sight check. Can Roadhog still see this target? If not, the hook breaks. And then when it starts pulling, if he can't see the target and they're behind the wall, it'll break again. That is all good stuff. The issue is this is going to make him way worse.
Yeah.
Because part of the reason he's good is because his hook is just super,
broken.
super powerful.
Yeah.
I expect it's also going to feel really awful to use. And this is something that they found with some other changes they've done in the past. Like, for example, there's an issue with Hanzo's arrows where they're really wide. Like and the same thing with May's icicle. Basically, any actual projectiles that are within the world are a lot wider than their hitbox makes them look.
Right.
Their physical model looks. Yeah, their hitbox is a lot larger. And they changed that, and they made them a lot smaller, and everyone was like, wow, that's really cool, yeah. And then it turned out that for the people that were trying to play those classes, it just felt awful.
Right.
And so they reverted that change. Even though it was better for the game and lots of people would have liked it, they reverted it because it just made playing those classes absolutely miserable. I would be surprised if something like that doesn't happen here again. I don't think we'll go into patch 1.7, assuming that's what this is. When that goes live, I doubt Roadhog's hook will be exactly as it is now. But I do wonder if it won't be quite as useless as it's kind of sounding like it might be after these initial changes.
Right. And then on the flip side of that, we had another post about Sombra, who is getting buffed.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. There was basically a post on the forums that was like, why don't you let Sombra hack through shields, which was something that she could do. I think it was a bug in the PTR where she was initially introduced. She could go through a Reinhardt shield, so if the Reinhardt was holding a shield up, she could hack him, and then he wouldn't be able to hold a shield up anymore, which obviously is massively powerful. Somebody was like, why don't you do that? Reinhardt's overpowered at the moment. Sombra is a little underpowered. Jeff said, we don't really want to do that. That felt awful and also was unbelievably strong, but she could use some buffs at the moment. Given he also said in another post on the same hour that there's a PTR coming, one would assume those two are going to link up.
Yeah.
And we'll see some kind of buff to Sombra. I would maybe guess just like a straight damage buff or some kind of increase to her abilities cooldown. Durations or decrease to cooldowns.
Yeah.
Because what's really cool about her is always being invisible, always moving around the map, and I think they could probably buff that up without it, making her super, super strong.
Yeah, and the other thing we talked about before the Christmas break was the sort of great tank issue. So it might be that this brings some of the tank nerfs with it as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like we were saying about Roadhog, he's definitely a character that needs to be brought down in some way, whether that involves destroying his hook or just nerfing it a bit or nerfing his gun damage or something. Or alternatively, maybe they will buff characters that are good against tanks, something like that Sombra buff this guy was suggesting, maybe not something quite that strong. And that's kind of important because a lot of people are pretty sick of the metagame as it is right now. The other option, of course, is to nerf the healers that are really, really good in those setups. Ana and Lucio are actually the characters that are getting picked all of the time. It's called this 4-tank meta, but the actual problem is that there's these two healers that are super, super strong. They're both really, really good at two separate things. Like Lucio's really good at just keeping your team healed and also providing this, massive pushing buff with his ultimate. And then Ana's really, really good at keeping one target alive and also making that target super, super strong with her ultimate. So one of those two or both, I could imagine getting some nerfs. They've both been very strong for a very long time. And I think all of that is quite important to also happen now, or, more accurately at the end of this month, because esports is going to kick off again.
Yeah.
People don't want to see the same stuff they saw last year. They want it to be different. And in the new year, there aren't a lot of tournaments that are planned. There's some going on at the moment that have been seasonal type things that have run since December, but they'll want to get this out of the way before, IEMs kick off or ESL events kick off or that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then we might get a handful of the much vaunted quality of life features as well, play of the game stuff as well, may start to trickle in at this point.
I'd hope so. This might, to be honest, not be this patch, but the next patch, for example, because this is stuff that's going to take a lot of work, and I expect if they'd got it to the point where it was testable, they probably would have put it live before the break so that people could test it over the Christmas break, and then if it was broken, they could just be like, look, it's broken, it's fine, we'll fix it when we get back. But that said, this is stuff that they've been working on for a long time. It's stuff that people really want. Whether it's going to be, play of the game improvements to maybe show two characters if it was, an Ana buffing somebody or something like that, or if it's something like the replay system they've been saying they really want to get into the game that people really want for esports reasons, better spectator mode, that sort of thing. These sort of things are the things that we're going to see in patches over the next 3 or 4 months.
We're going to have to, right, before they roll out the Overwatch League properly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Have to make all of that spectator stuff work really, really well.
Yeah, exactly, and that will be their main goal from that systems standpoint. If you think of it as 3 things, there's balance, there's the cosmetic stuff, and then there's the systems that's stuff like matchmaking and replays and spectator modes. The focus of that team will be the stuff that they need to make the Overwatch League work. Yeah. And at the top of that list is spectator mode.
Cool. And then one other thing just to touch on, which we did a sort of 2017 predictions show, which you should watch if you haven't watched it already. And one thing we talked about was events for this year, one of which we mentioned sort of in passing was a Chinese New Year thing, because it felt like something they'll probably do, but maybe not in a major way like they did with Halloween and Christmas. But we could have been wrong about that, and it could end up being slightly bigger than we thought. Yeah,
there's just kind of a lot of all the stuff that's coming out at the moment. There's been some data mining, there's some new voice lines been found in that. There's this thing about a new May legendary skin. All of that is stuff that happens when they do big events. It's not stuff that happens when they do small events. So it's possible it might be larger than we thought. It's maybe they've improved their pipeline slightly so that they can do, a big event that close to the Winter Wonderland one. The Winter Wonderland one, as we talked about, was a little lower key than the Halloween one or the summer one. So maybe this is another little lower key, but not a tiny event like we were perhaps predicting. It also just kind of, it makes sense. Again, like we were saying last time, 2 weeks ago now, it's something that they do in all their games and that they really like doing stuff for is Chinese New Year. And also there's a lot of options there for new skins and that sort of thing. So it's very possible it will be a major event.
I think it will be. I think it'll be another step down from Winter Wonderland. I think it might be I'm just making stuff up here, but this is what I think. My instinct is it'll be maybe confined to a small number of characters rather than being something for everyone. I think it'll be some nice stuff, but I think it'll be more limited in its scope than even than Winter Wonderland was. But I think it'll be like a bit of a celebratory thing again.
Would you see like a game mode in that?
No, I then again, I'm totally guessing here. I reckon some skins, but that's probably about it. I don't see them doing another game mode just because, like you say, it's really close to when they did Winter Wonderland, right? And this stuff takes a while to make. And they've just done a new map. They got to balance, they've had to be balancing that before it went live and stuff like that. So I don't know, but it'd be obviously be nice if it was. And like you say, they've got a bit of a track record with this as a celebration. I don't know. I haven't really thawed out after Christmas, so I'd be amazed if they have.
Yeah, well, quite. And what this does mean is that I can expect these two things to line up, right? So this PTR goes live now, testing goes through till Chinese New Year, which is the last week of January, unless I've got that horribly wrong. And then that patch will go live along with the Chinese New Year event, so you get kind of a bumper thing of here's a bunch of balance changes, here's a bunch of skins, here's whatever else they're doing for Chinese New Year.
Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. Do be sure to subscribe to the channel. We will have more info on the PTR changes as outlined very soon, and we'll also be looking at who might be Overwatch's next hero.